We have no one willing to start us off with a prayer. Okay, Tony.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's humble ourselves for a word of prayer. Almighty Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you that we are healthy. And Lord, we thank you for the jobs that you've blessed us with. We commit today into your hands all the deliberations that we are going to have. Father, we pray that you guide us, and may we have fruitful deliberations today. In Jesus' name we've prayed. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tony, for that wonderful prayer. So we're going to start with introductions. We want to know who is in the room, who is here, and we are going to start. Let's start right at the back, the table over there. We can pass the mic on to them so that we know who's in the room.
Good morning, Trust Bank.
Good morning, Charles Omudio at DFCU Bank.
Good morning, Xavier Nakakembo, Support Business Solutions.
Good morning, Shem Kingora, Support Business Solutions.
Good morning, everyone. George Matua, Payway.
Good morning, Doreen Lukandwa on Africa.
Good morning, Arthur Kahenano, Bank of Uganda.
Morning, everyone. Gerald Begumisa, Managing Director at Yo Uganda Limited.
Good morning, Dennis Ruharo, Dimac Company.
Morning, everyone. David Sechirembeka, Citibank Uganda.
Morning, everyone. Peter Kagumia, Bank of Uganda.
Morning, everyone. Benoni Okwenje, Centenary Bank.
Morning, everyone. Paul Chuanuka, Wakandi, Uganda.
Good morning, everyone. Lilian Akot, FSD Uganda.
Morning, everyone. Martin Agaya, FSD Uganda.
Good morning to you all. Alvin Martin Musinguzi, I&M Bank.
Good morning. Edward Muhaire, Minister of Finance.
Good morning. Myself Deepak Kumar Misra, Executive Director, Bank of Baroda, Uganda Limited.
Good morning, everyone. Ivan Kanyali, D-Loco.
Morning, everyone. Zerubbabel Kweviha Jr., FSD Uganda.
Good morning, everyone. Emmanuel Chikoni, EcoBank.
Morning, Edgar Muganwa, International Fund for Agricultural Development.
Good morning, Paul Kugonza from Lake Amani.
Good morning, Joseph Okol, Laikamani, Uganda.
Hi, good morning. My name is Claudia Apia Isiama from UBA, Uganda.
Good morning. My name is Michael Pira from Housing Finance Bank.
Good morning, everyone. Frederick Sekurija, Hubra.
Good morning, everyone. Rob Sanford from Safe Boda.
Good morning to you all. My name is Alfred Krom from Bank of Uganda.
Good morning, Sheila Ninsima, Bank of Uganda.
Good morning, Collins Ongima from DPO.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Patricia Ahumuza from MRD, Ministry of Finance.
Good morning, everyone. Rita Karungi Butime from the Bank of Uganda. Glad to be here.
Morning, everyone. Alan Mugabe from Cairo Bank.
Morning, everyone. Opolot Ambrose from Chap Chap Africa.
Good morning, everyone. Joeri Mkalazi, ED Tropical Bank.
Good morning, everyone. Aisha Rima from Celllands.
Good morning, everyone. Fiona Luswata from UNCDF.
Hello, I'm Ronald Azirwe, Pegasus Technologies.
Good morning, Patricia Mito from Uganda Bankers Association.
Good morning, Grace Melissa from EcoBank Uganda.
Good morning, my name is Peter Kaumi from Interswitch.
Good morning, my name is Jackie Chitibwa from FSD Uganda.
Good morning, everyone. Asimwe Emma, Equity Bank Uganda.
Good morning, everyone. Team Jock Empiri, Equity Bank Uganda.
Victoria Adong Abwin, FSD Uganda. Good morning.
Good morning, Richard Jabel, ABC.
Good morning, Vincent Tumwishiche, FutureLink Technologies.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Buitumelo Sabambo from Genesis Analytics.
Morning, everyone. I'm Mukama Turiho Abigail from Genesis Analytics.
Morning, everyone. Daniel Ainebiona, also from Genesis.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Biabazaire from FSD Uganda.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Andrew Kawere from Bank of Uganda.
Good morning to you all. I'm Moses Tuliagenda from Bank of Uganda.
Good morning, Alex Ochan from Bank of Uganda.
Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Augustine Sekiondwa is my name. I'm from NITA, Uganda.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Patience Chikoni from FSD Uganda.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Olivia Banya, your co-chair for the day from Bank of Uganda.
And good morning once again. My name is Diana Kuluwanyama from FSD Uganda, your co-chair or co-MC for today. You're all welcome. I believe we've all introduced ourselves. We all know who is in the room. This is a demonstration that we have all stakeholders from in the room. We have regulators, we have commercial banks, we have the PSPs, we have the development partners and the fintechs. I believe this is a good composition for us to be able to validate the report that is going to be presented by our partners, Genesis Analytics. I also just want to take this opportunity to thank you for participating in the key informant interviews, the focus group discussions, and all your submissions has led to the compilation of this report. So we are looking forward to listening, to seeing what the outcomes are, and also looking forward to getting your feedback on the report. We're going to just have a brief break, and then we get into the program. So maybe the DJ can give us some soft music as we settle a bit. Thank you. Do we have anyone who hasn't introduced themselves? There's a hand up there.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janie Rachel Nakato from Pearl Bank, formerly Post Bank, Uganda.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Olive Karatumba from Absa Bank.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maurice Seguia from Interswitch Uganda.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bijoy Isaac from DFCL.
Is there anybody else?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Kasuja from FSD Uganda.
To work with as we
Uganda. We'll have Ms. Sarah Biabazare come to speak to us, and then we'll have remarks from Bank of Uganda. I don't know, Martin, is it possible to display the agenda? Martin. Just a minute. Thank you. Sorry, we're having some technical problems. We'll be displaying the agenda shortly. In the meantime, we'd like to welcome our next speaker, Ms. Sarah Biabazire from Financial Sector Deepening Uganda, to give us some welcoming remarks. Thank you, Sarah.
Good morning everyone. Representatives from the Ministry of Finance, representatives from Bank of Uganda, representatives from the development world, the CEOs and representatives of the financial service providers from the financial services sector, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to this validation workshop, and I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time to be here in person. In a very special way, I would like to recognize the leadership and the team at Bank of Uganda who have spearheaded the development and the implementation of the National E-Payment Strategy that has been running since 2021. I would like to thank them for their leadership, for the guidance, for supporting the different partners that have also played a key role in ensuring that this strategy is well implemented. As FSD Uganda, our mandate is to advance financial inclusion in Uganda. And we cannot do this alone. We do it through partnerships with different institutions that work towards removing barriers to access and usage of financial services and solutions. So a few years ago, in partnership with Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, and with the Bank of Uganda as well, we came up with, the country came up with a national financial inclusion strategy. One of the key pillars in this strategy is development of digital infrastructure. So Bank of Uganda has then since led us through the development and the implementation of an e-payment strategy that actually resolves or supports that pillar under the financial inclusion strategy. That strategy, the e-payment strategy, envisions a Uganda which is cashless. And for us to do that, we would have to then have e-payment solutions that are safe and accessible for all Ugandans, and so it has to be very inclusive. And to support this, a number of foundational solutions needed to be put in place. And FSD, I'll just take you through just a few foundational infrastructure or foundational activities that FSD Uganda has supported in the last few years. To support innovation for the financial services providers to be able to test their financial solutions that they are coming up with in a safe way, we worked with Bank of Uganda to come up with a regulatory sandbox. In addition to that, to be able to drive accessibility of financial services in a digital economy, there's need for verifiable identification. One of the foundational blocks that we then needed to come up with is a way to be able to verify consumers digitally or through what we call the eKYC solution. So this was spearheaded by Uganda Bankers Association, and we now have a solution where each of the FSPs is able to verify before a payment or even an account is opened. And then to extend services to the last mile, there was need to have agent banking spread out to the not just within the urban and peri-urban areas, but also in the rural areas. So we then supported with the development of the shared agent banking platform, which has also supported in ensuring that we are able to serve to the very last mile. And we also had to then put guardrails, because with the digital economy, then the fraudsters can also be able to, can easily come in and defraud the users. So again, UBA supported or led the development of the Cybersecurity Operations Center, which has now become very multi-sectoral. And through this, we are now able to manage the threats to our digital economy and also to respond to any form of fraud that comes through. So the results of this platform, of this strategy, have been very collaborative. So there's been many players, and each one of you in this room has also played a role in ensuring that Uganda has a digital economy that thrives. So we thank you all for your dedication and for the support that you have given in ensuring that we now are beginning our journey to getting cashless. So I think we have now solved for the problem of access. So we can say today that all Ugandans are able to access some form of financial service or some form of financial product. So we now have the foundation laid well. We've also put some guardrails in place. However, we don't have enough traffic that's using these financial services and solutions that we have come up with. There are quite a number of barriers that still exist, but the ones that I would like to highlight today are two. The first one is affordability. We do have the services in place, however, not everyone can afford the digital solutions that we have put in place. And so that remains as one of the biggest barriers that we need to solve for in the next phase. We also have some form of market structure that is very, it's not a very smart market structure that we currently have in place. Reading the Genesis Analytics report, one of the things they highlighted is that we have over 1,000 bilateral payment agreements between the banks, the PSPs, and other third-party service providers. So this creates some form of inefficiency, and I think that's one of the reasons as to why we see that the costs of providing our services is still high. But there is work that Bank of Uganda is currently doing to ensure that we can have a national switch that will then solve for this problem. The second barrier that I would like to highlight today is trust. Some of the Ugandans don't trust digital solutions or digital platforms. This could also be because of the low digital financial literacy within the nation, and that's something that we now need to solve for. There's also, of course, fraud. So one instance of fraud is then, one that causes some form of fear among the users and limits the usage of these platforms. So these are some of the barriers we now need to work on to be able to have more traffic in terms of the usage of our financial solutions. So FSD Uganda is committed to continue to partner with the different government agencies and also the private sector to ensure that we can solve for these barriers, because like I mentioned, our mandate is to really advance financial inclusion in Uganda. So wherever we see barriers, we are happy to partner to ensure that we work through those barriers and have more people access. I would like to also take this opportunity to thank you once again for being here in person to attend this validation session. And I look forward to a productive discussion. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Genesis Analytics for the work that they have done to support this strategy. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your kind remarks. There's one person that needs an introduction, I think just came in a few minutes ago.
Joseph Lutwama, I'm the Director of Research and Insights at FSD Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for your kind remarks. Our next presenter is, on behalf of Bank of Uganda, Mr. Andrew Kawere. I don't know if you want to go to the podium. Yes. Podium. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
The protocol, I think, has been laid out, but I would like to mention quite a few dignitaries, beginning with our partners, FSDU. The CEO is with us. She's just made her remarks. So our partners, FSDU, and the senior leaders here present, the team from Genesis Analytics, our consulting partners. I've had a number of other development partners who are with us today. The various chief executives, I've seen some CEOs from the banks, the payment service providers, and UBA, senior leaders from the UBA, distinguished ladies and gentlemen in your various capacities. A good morning once again, and thank you for turning up for this discussion. So on behalf of the management of the Bank of Uganda, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this stakeholder validation workshop for the end term review of the National E-Payment Strategy. This strategy was launched in 2021 with a vision of empowering Ugandans with a broad range of innovative e-payments options that are safe, efficient, accessible, and inclusive. I'm not shy to mention that this being the first of its kind was some kind of stopgap measure. For those who are closely working with us as BOU, you will recall, especially the CEOs in the Payment Service Providers Association, our partners at FSDU, and I think the UBA team, you will recall that this was some, nearly stopgap measure that we had to come up with following the enactment of the payments regulatory framework. So in a way, it was a bit of a stopgap strategy. Okay, but that notwithstanding, I'm very proud of the milestones that we have hit in the past 4 years. To a certain extent, the strategy has helped us to lay a very strong foundation that has registered some decent achievements, as I'm going to briefly highlight. So, from where we sit as Bank of Uganda, this has been a massive success because the impact of our collective efforts in implementing this strategy is quite visible in a number of parameters. And allow me to highlight a few of them. I know that the report probably will go into details, but I will highlight a few indicators which I think demonstrate some of the achievements that we've registered under this stopgap strategy. And I think there is no better indicator on the quantitative side than the transaction value and volume that we see when it comes to electronic money or mobile money, to be specific. In the year ending June 2025, the numbers show that up to 326 trillion shillings in value was transacted on the different e-money platforms. Now, 326 trillion is more than the GDP of the country. And this is as compared to 156 trillion in June 2022. Now, June 2022 was, the time when we started implementing this strategy. So the transaction value has doubled from 156 trillion to 326 trillion. The transaction count has also nearly doubled. As of in the year ending June 2022, we had about 4.8 billion transactions. And this has gone up to 8.4 billion transactions in the year ending June 2025. And this is sustained by nearly 35 million active mobile money accounts. Now, I know that one of the challenges we had with this strategy was around measurement and impact assessment. So along the way, in the last 1 year, Bank of Uganda also designed an index, a digital payments index, an e-payments index, to try and address this measurement question. And indeed, this index has also shown an increase. It is still new and is still being monitored, but this index has also risen to 37% as of June 2025. So these are some of the indicators that we believe show the impact that we've been able to register as we implemented this first e-payment strategy. And I think these findings are also consistent with what independent researchers have found. And I will draw your attention to the World Bank Findex report, which was released a couple of months ago. In the Findex report, we were informed that 71% of Ugandans are using digital platforms. That's based on 2024 data of the survey. And this is up from, I think, 68% in 2021. So these, I think, are things to be proud about. And these are things, in other words, these digital platforms have significantly contributed to financial inclusion in general. Sarah talked about the financial inclusion strategy. And indeed, the last FinScope survey noted that financial inclusion had gone up to 81% in 2023, up from 78%, if I recall correctly, in 2018. But the most important thing I want to pick up is that even then, that access was largely attributed to digital platforms. So the conversations we're having today are critical for the achievement of the National Financial Inclusion Agenda, and more broadly, the government agenda of getting Uganda into a middle-income country, and of course, achievement of all the other national aspirations as laid out in the various policy documents. So, in this strategy period, access has indeed expanded. Sarah has talked about that. I will not repeat. We've made some progress on certain aspects around interoperability. We're not yet there, but we've made some progress. Regulatory innovation, I think, is another area where we've registered some decent results. The sandbox is operational. We've had some tests being successful. Some have not been successful. Some have not been accepted because of constraints around design of the sandbox. And we're doing some work around that as well to try and review the sandbox framework. I know that at an appropriate time, we shall be having another conversation specifically to deal with constraints around the innovation framework for the sandbox, and to ask ourselves, how can we leverage the sandbox to be more supportive of innovation in the digital space today. So these are some of the achievements that we can directly attribute to the implementation of this strategy. There have been a number of other interventions around regulatory aspects, issues around interest on trust accounts, issues around cybersecurity. Sarah talked about the cybersecurity aspects on the UBA side, but we've also issued some cybersecurity guidelines on the PSP's side under the National Payment Systems Act. We have strengthened institutional collaboration. This indeed was one of the pillars of the strategy. Collaboration, I think, has been a key pillar in the past 4 years, working with not only the licensed entities, but also the development community and even academia for some research engagements, as an example. The PSP's forum is another indicator, another outcome that has been very, very highly successful, giving the licensed entities a forum to engage with the senior leadership of the Bank of Uganda on policy matters. And I think we've made some good progress in that regard. The EKYC has been addressed, advancement of the legislative agenda through other laws that are not necessarily under the payments law, but which are complementary, such as the microfinance deposit-taking institutions amendments and the regulatory framework the regulations there are under. These have paved way for microfinance deposit-taking institutions to engage in agent banking, which is another avenue that is supporting access to financial services. So I think there is quite a lot we can be proud of in this period that we are looking at. But of course, there are also the missed opportunities. Or maybe I should put it differently and say areas that we could leverage further as we look forward, as we look ahead. Because despite the momentum, there are a number of gaps, there are a number of challenges, which I think we need to put our heads together on and devise actionable interventions as we start looking ahead towards the next strategy. And I will start with the Findex again. I mentioned that the World Bank gave us a 71%, the survey found that 71% of adults are using digital payments, up from I think 68% or 63% in 2021. But the same Findex report noted that only 12% were reported to have made digital merchant payments, compared to a sub-Saharan average of 20%. Now, yes, we might celebrate and say, okay, 71%, that's good, up from 68% earlier in 2021. Yes, that's good, and we clap for it. But is that the best? The answer is in the same report, because only 12% is attributed to merchant payments. So while access has improved, usage remains a problem. And I can't agree more with Sarah on that, because she also picked it up. Okay, how do we get more usage? The sub-Saharan average is 20%, and we are well below that. We're almost at 50% of the sub-Saharan peers. But perhaps this suggests that some of the would-be merchant payments are being done on P2P, they're being done as P2P transfers, because the numbers show that the P2P transfers are quite huge. Of the 326 trillion I mentioned, I think about 25% of that is P2P, and P2B is maybe about 20% of the 326 trillion. So the question is, how can we get more people to do digital merchant payments? This is important because this whole story of the digital economy should enable the ordinary Ugandan to build a digital footprint that will get them to access cheap credit, a digital footprint that will enable them build a banking profile, a footprint that will move them from the informal to the formal economy. And so I think our work is cut out in that regard. We must translate these P2P transactions into business payments. Or we must create an avenue for those who can't do, for those who are not doing P2B transactions, to build a footprint, even if it was a P2P. I don't know. The experts are here, many of them in the private sector. These are the pain points, and I hope you will give us some solutions as we move forward. Affordability is another pain. We've made some progress on this. I do recall that until maybe 2 years ago, we didn't have a flat rate for interoperability transfers between the big two players, MTN and Airtel. Okay, but through the engagements we had with them, we were able to, at least get to a uniform flat rate. I think it's about 1,000 shillings up to a certain amount, which is a good start. But the pricing is a pain point. There are lots of additional challenges. Pricing with the aggregators, pricing when it comes to bank-to-wallet transactions. So this is a big pain point, which inevitably keeps the affordability of these transactions beyond the reach of the majority of our people. So that is an area that keeps us scratching our heads. And in the coming weeks, we even have an engagement scheduled to try and find a solution with the stakeholder engagement scheduled. So the other one, as I move towards the end, is around the trust. Again, Sarah talked about this as well. Meaningful usage of the digital financial services requires us to deal with the question of trust, the question of digital literacy, the question of digital fraud. Okay, we must step up our efforts when it comes to educating the masses. Safe use of digital platforms, safe use of gadgets. Many times the public is quick to blame the institutions. The public is always quick to blame the banks. The public is quick to blame the PSPs. The public is quick to say the challenges or the culprits are the institutions. But from the interactions we've had through our outreach engagements and some of the complaints that the central bank has received, it is very clear that digital literacy must be stepped up. As we promote access, as we promote usage of the platforms, we must in parallel deal with the question of digital literacy. Some of the cases we get are embarrassing. Okay, some of the cases we get are embarrassing, but evidently pointing towards the need for more customer empowerment. So, in terms of thought processes of areas, additional areas that we'll probably need to reflect on, again, I can't agree more with Sarah. The digital public infrastructure, we've done a lot, and thanks to FSDU on the infrastructure front, they've supported us and the financial sector as a whole with a number of infrastructure initiatives. The EKYC initiative, we have the ongoing work around the central data hub for supporting the credit reference market. We have work around the anti-fraud consortium with the incident reporting portal. There are lots of ongoing infrastructure initiatives, but we also want to really see through some key digital public infrastructure aspects, key among which is the question of the national payment switch. Okay, the National Identification Authority, as we're all aware, is also working on the second generation of national IDs, which are foundational in this whole discussion. So we hope that as part of this strategy, maybe in the first few years of the new strategy, we'll be able to see through some of that critical digital public infrastructure so that we can unlock even more financial innovation. The issues around affordability and cost, obviously, it will be a priority. Issues around fair competition. The central bank had made an effort to come up with fair competition regulations to deal with some of the imbalances and structural constraints in the digital payment space. But we hit some hurdles with the mandate on competition squarely now under the Ministry of Trade. But I do understand that the ministry is working on on fair competition regulations. So we hope that the central bank will leverage that to see how those regulations can be extended to the digital payment space, so that we can, be able to address the imbalances and support innovation, as well as bring down fees. I think, those are some of the nuggets that I thought I could highlight as we reflect today. But in conclusion, I would like to note that as far as we're concerned, we believe that this strategy that is the subject of today's evaluation has successfully laid a robust foundation for our digital economy. The challenge that is before us is to critique, the findings. Let us evaluate, these findings. Let us objectively discuss what is going to be presented to us, so that we meaningfully lay the ground for the next strategy. So I would like to thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, for setting aside this morning, but also to add that I really look forward to your objective feedback on this strategy. And thereafter, of course, we shall be coming back to you, to start work on the second strategy. I think our partners will comment on that maybe during the course of the discussion. But otherwise, I thank you once again, and I look forward to the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your remarks, Andrew. Before we get into our partner's presentation, we'd like a few minutes to stretch for people, maybe 5 minutes, and then we can get back. 5 minutes break, a brief break, just to stretch. Stretch, exactly. Seats as we get ready for our next presenter. Ladies and gentlemen, can we kindly take our seats? Ladies and gentlemen, please can we take our seats? Our presenter is ready. Just give him time. Ladies and gentlemen, I think maybe we're ready to start with our next presenter. We'd like to recognize everybody watching on YouTube who's not able to be here with us today. We'd like to recognize them. We'd like to welcome our partners. Genesis Analytics, welcome Boitemelo. Thank you. As they take us to the report, I don't know, are you ready to start, Boitemelo?
I am. Oh, there we go. Good morning, everyone. Although, again, because protocol has been observed, am I audible? Am I audible now?
Please, would like everybody to take their seats so that we can start. Ladies and gentlemen, would like you to please come in with your coffees and teas. Would like to start.
You let me know, Olivia, when to start.
Yes, you can go ahead and start.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, particularly BOU and FSDU, Ministry of Finance, the development partners, and the private sector ecosystem players, including the associations and forums. Sarah and Director Andrew, you've kind of made my job a little more complicated because you've got far more relevant and updated data. You've got the June data, so I'll try and roll with that. I'm from Genesis. Our job for this particular project was to conduct an end-of-term evaluation on the execution the payment strategy, and to then engage with yourselves as ecosystem players. It's good to actually just have everybody in the room. Is that better? Pardon? Is that better? Oh, increase my volume. Okay. I think then I can do that with this one. You know, when you conduct these workshops, it's always just individual organizations to have everybody in the room to validate our findings, but also to discuss them at a broader perspective. I think that's the purpose of the day. There will be some questions afterwards, and there will be discussions to just get into it in more detail. So in terms of what we had to do, our scope was, as Genesis, to evaluate the extent to which the strategy that had 4 objectives had been accomplished, highlighting key achievement areas and where there were maybe progress lags, and also where there were challenges. And our evaluation was really around evaluating the implementation process to identify where there were strengths and weaknesses, but also to look at whether or not there were any challenges, to look at best practice and to benchmark against other countries' e-payment strategy implementations, and then the big thoughts around what should be focused on for the next strategy by the bank, by the development partners, and yourselves as ecosystem players. So we were then commissioned to look at this, and I think Director Andrew called it a stopgap strategy, but in actual fact, the accomplishments and the milestones that were achieved, I think, make it much bigger than stopgap. In terms of where we started from, we looked at what the 4 pillars of the strategy were, and it was around promoting infrastructure development and interoperability. It was around operationalization of the NPS Act. It was fostering innovation, competition, and I think there have been a number of discussions around that, around the sandbox, around consumer protection, around digital literacy. Sarah got into some of that detail, but also around strengthening collaboration arrangements across the ecosystem, fintechs, MDAs, and development partners. Tech team, it seems to be jumping. Is that, can I continue? Thank you. So how we decided to evaluate this was around using the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development criteria. And this criteria, we looked at 4 things. And the reason we used this was, 1, it was a global standard. It was comprehensive and structured analysis, and it's what development partners already use in terms of evaluation. It was aligned with stakeholder expectations, and it focuses on actionable insights into what then needs to happen. So that's why we chose these 4 criteria to look at how to evaluate this particular strategy. And we looked at it in 4 parts. For individuals who sat in our KIIs, they would remember there was a set of questions that we then went into. It was quite structured conversations. We looked at the effectiveness of the strategy, we looked at the impact, and there was a set of questions around each one of these 4 criteria. An example would be, we looked at what extent have the intended actions been achieved. We looked at issues around, are there any unintended consequences, what the challenges are. But most importantly, I think the impact, how has the strategy impacted Uganda's e-payment ecosystem. We looked at how has the strategy influenced the regulatory environment. Then we also looked at the efficiency of the strategy, and again also looked at forward-looking considerations. At the end of this discussion, we'd look at what needs to be looked at and going forward, but these questions were asked. In terms of efficiency, a set of questions we looked at were, are the financial and human resources allocated to the strategy sufficient? How does the implementation compare to the benefits and impact? Are payment infrastructure secure, reliable, and that discussion we'll have. So this is really around the framework for looking at the strategy that we applied. We conducted what we call KIIs, which are key informant interviews with forums, with association, with ecosystem players, and we looked at government, private sector, MNOs, development partners, and financial associations. This is not a conclusive list, but this is to just give a view of who we spoke to in terms of the interviews. Associations, we've put FITSPA there, but UBA was also included, development partners, UNCDF, and of course the FSDU being a partner in the execution. MTN and Airtel were very important in terms of understanding the implementation of the strategy. And these were done in terms of in-person interviews, but also virtual interviews, and we also did some desktop interviews. I think what I need to stop here and look at is this was largely a supply-side evaluation, but it is important, I think, when conducting something like this to consider what sits on demand side. So we did do some looking at items like the FinScope to understand the impact on users of digital financial services and recipients of the national payment. I'll take a stop here. I think Director Andrew went into some detail on here, and his numbers were more updated than mine. But like I said, in order to understand what has happened, one needs to also just look at the demand side, although this was a supply side view. And this actually speaks to the impact. What has the impact of the implementation been? How are users experiencing access to digital financial services? I think Sarah called it a journey to a cashless society. So this is just a view to say what has happened from 2020 to 2024, as this is a 2021 to 2026 strategy. And what we're seeing here is that digital transaction volumes and values have grown sharply. The number that was quoted was transaction value sitting at 326 trillion in July, I think the number was July 2025. So unfortunately what I've got here is 2024. But there is a steep increase, I think, that we need to see from the volume of digital transactions increasing at 23%, and that value at 69%, and at the time landing at 159, and as we know now it's landed at 326 trillion. It's quite important to note that that journey to cashless society and usage of digital financial services is increasing. In terms of access points, again, something that is quite improving steeply. We're looking at mobile money agents having grown between 2020 and 2024 by 37%. And according to the Helix Institution, digital finance, 50% of cash in and cash out agents in Uganda conduct at least 30 transactions per day. And I think that's quite an improvement, and that they can then be considered active agents. And as you'll see, the agent network has also grown by 36%, a testament to access, but also access points and average transaction volumes. In terms of the growing network mobile money transactions, we do see also in the same period a 64% growth in terms of adults using digital transfer services. And there was a new number actually that 71% of Ugandan adults are using digital platforms. So I think again, and then we're seeing that 42% of those people are using digital financial for savings, which is quite important. Because one of the things we picked up is there's a large population that uses digital financial services as a post box. So it's money in, money out. So to see an improvement, I think, in savings through mobile money speaks to financial inclusion, speaks to the journey to cashless and also access. And then there's been a 3% decrease in DFS access and usage in terms of the gender gap. So again, I think it's quite important to look at how users are using the infrastructure, how users are receiving the additional financial services. So in carrying out this evaluation, we looked at the implementation progress, but also we looked at what the enabling success factors are. And it's quite important to just take a pause on this particular slide. Like I had mentioned earlier, there were 4 pillars And inside those pillars, there are in overall 16 actions. The items that we've marked as green, which I'll go through, is what was incomplete, which was completed, and then the ambers are what's in progress, and then we've got an item that's incomplete. But I think from looking at the scorecard, seeing all that green speaks to milestones achieved, speaks to progress, and also that there's some items that are in progress, I think speaks to what has been done. As Director said, the establishing of the national switch is still in progress, and I think we just need to consider that as something that once complete, it will speak and speed up interoperability. But a lot of achievements have been made. We look at Action 3, supporting KYC is in progress. It's in phase 2. Phase 1 was successfully complete. In terms of liquefaction of data for PSPs and BOU, that's complete. The sandbox in itself is complete. As Director mentioned, going forward, it's just looking at how to improve it, how to make it work better, to be far more inclusive. In progress is the review of the Act and regulations. Complete are the guidelines around the management distribution of interest earned on trust. And I suspect there'll be more discussion after this, because in the ARIs there were far more discussions. Reviewing of agent banking regulation is complete. Having looked at the previous slides in terms of channels, there is a lot of work and improvement and access happening in agent banking space. I think another big one to look at was the work being done in promotions of e-payments, including electronic transfer of funds, debit cards, etc. And one of the things that came up a lot in the discussions that we had with PSPs and also financials, the private sector financial services, was around the promotion and adoption of cybersecurity standards. I think that's one of the areas that, although complete in the new strategy, will require more work, because I think from a fraud perspective, you know, as users increase, there'll be more and more ways in which I think fraudsters want to participate themselves. So it's one of the things that was highlighted as it needs to move faster than fraudsters would move in order to build trust, in order to encourage people to use, because I think it's one of the inhabitants of trust from users of digital financial services. So we'll take a pause here just to think around, from the interviews we had, what did the ecosystem players label and indicate as the big enabling factors for execution of the strategy? So one of the key and big items that came up was the participation and BOU senior leadership support, the commitment of the governor and the deputy governor to the e-payments agenda. It's one of the things that just kept coming up, I think, in every single interview we had. And most people said ensure that certain initiatives, such as the Governors Forum, also, I think, fostered transparency, fair dialogue, and collaboration. And coming up again is something that people have said must be continued in order to then build onto the oncoming strategy, but also in order to be able to collaborate further and have different discussions. The active participation of private sector, I think, in those forums, but other forums that have been established, the willingness of the regulator to discuss with private sector, and also just evidence-based discussions, I think, was one of the things that was highlighted quite big. Market participants spoke about their willingness to invest in digital financial literacy and public awareness projects beyond what the development players like FSD and UNCDF said. I think it was quite encouraging to see that. All the interviewed commercial banks and PSPs reported having built very tailored financial literacy programs in order to educate customers, in order to highlight where customers need to watch out for cybersecurity issues. And also they've spoke about encouraging banking officers to engage with customers, to understand what customers were struggling with in terms of trust. I think from a dialogue perspective, again, it was repeated that the Governors CEO Forum was cited as one of the most successful and effective outcomes of the strategy. And the platforms, I think, provided high-level discussions, but also gave a sense of the direction in which BOU wants to take, but also BOU gave a platform in terms of where the PSPs and the banks wanted to go. The second bit was around the development partner support. I think as Sarah spoke about the participation of FSDU, but also UNCDF. It's one of the things that was actually highlighted as a big critical success factor to say that in terms of digital financial literacy, in terms of implementation of the national payment strategy, although budgets may be limited, that participation actually increases usage. Technical support was addressed as having maybe some capability limitations. And then the other big items that were highlighted as success factors was a growing mobile phones and internet access, the rise in mobile phone and internet access. Both mobile phone and internet penetration over the period had been seen to have increased. Mobile phone ownership had increased by about 21% in 2018 and 72% in 2023. That also, I think, is an enabling success factor to the usage. In terms of the expansion of connectivity also, that I think lays the groundwork. So when we looked at rural areas, one of the things around the limited usage was network accessibility. And I think this is a call to infrastructure and a call to MNOs around that particular access. And then the big item, which I think Andrew mentioned, was the interoperability between the MNOs. While full market interoperability remains unachieved, both MTN and Airtel wallets are fully operable. And I think that in itself has increased. Again, I think the cost remains a limitation, but nonetheless, it does allow for usage. And mobile money remains the single largest channel through which e-payments transactions are made, representing just under 70% of total transactions. I'll pause here for the lessons learned for Daniel to go through the lessons learned and also to go through ideas that were brought up for the strategy going forward.
Hi everyone, Daniel Ainebiona again from the Genesis Analytics team. I'm going to go through some of the key insights that came out of the evaluation. So she has gone over what happened, activities that happened, what were some of the outcomes. So I'm going to now go through key insights where we saw we can make a recommendation here. Moving forward, this can be done better. And it's going to be based on 4 different categories. So we look at the design of the strategy. So the strategy itself, how was it designed? Was the design fit for purpose, or are there any changes that could be made? And then in terms of the regulatory framework as well, we have some recommendations there. The governance and coordination between the various stakeholders, that was a key implementation issue, and also the focus of the strategy itself and how it was implemented. So maybe just going back to the design of the strategy, one thing that's come up in what the director mentioned is the strategy came after the regulation had already been put in place, which typically from what we've seen in other countries, the strategy is meant to come before so that the regulation considers the various aspects of what the strategy is trying to achieve. So moving forward, for foundational strategies where we are trying to build an industry from scratch, it's best that this comes before the regulation itself. And then in terms of when the strategy was launched, it's good that we're having such an engagement, and it's good that various stakeholders were individually consulted, and also through the associations, that's UBA and PSPA. However, there was no formal launch of the strategy itself. which limited stakeholders' awareness of the different activities within the strategy, and also limited buy-in and ownership of particular activities. So you'd speak to some stakeholders who would, I guess, want a reminder on, oh, what were we supposed to do in this strategy? And we think that's something that can be alleviated by, if you have a formal launch, maybe for the next future strategies, that would help bring all the stakeholders to the table so that everyone is aware of what needs to be done. And then this has also been raised by the director. There was no formal list of KPIs that could be used to track the performance of the strategy, which I think is part of the strategy coming in as a stopgap measure. And the recommendation here for the future strategy would be ensuring that there's a clear theory of change, so that there's a way to measure success of implementation, and also a way to identify gaps, at least quantitatively, so we can be able to see what can be done better, and also how can the industry be helped to grow. And then the strategy has been implemented primarily by, led by NPSD within BOU. And the issue here was it was also funded by NPSD's budget, which from the evidence that we've seen in other countries, like Ethiopia, for example, it's best if the strategy itself has a dedicated budget and a dedicated team to oversee that and also run the specific activities within. And the big thing here, of course, is that ring-fenced budget, which can be within the BOU, it can be within whichever stakeholder, but it has to be specific to the activities of the national e-payment strategy. That's something that can help the strategy be implemented better over its period. Then moving on to the regulatory framework, again, we've picked out just a few of the lessons that we've learned. If you read the report, I'm sure most of you have gotten access to it. There's a longer list of lessons and recommendations that we make here. But from the regulatory framework, the one thing that came out strongly, and a lot of the PSPs can attest to this, was the mobile money tax and the effect that that has on users being willing to use the e-payment solutions that are in the market. So the tax, first of all, we found on the demand side is probably not properly understood, and also on the supply side, the drivers behind consumers' perceptions and behaviors are also not properly understood. So our recommendation here would be to, first of all, study the space, understand the drivers behind cash versus digital usage, understand the levers that can be changed to encourage people to use these solutions more, and also understand that on the supply side, what can be done to help consumers better perceive these products and also be able to use them despite the tax, because the taxes are there for a reason. And yeah, so both the supply side and the demand side, there's need for a study there to understand what are the drivers and what each player can be doing differently to get perceptions about the taxes to be more conducive. And then in terms of the regulatory framework as well, one of the fears that came out in the interviews was loss of institutional knowledge at the level of the regulator, where there's sort of like staff rotations. So the fear there is that some of the niche knowledge can be lost in those rotations. And the recommendation there, of course, is to put in mechanisms so that that specific knowledge is retained within the necessary department, and also making sure that there is regular training of the people in these departments, because the e-payment space is one that changes quite often, and you typically want everyone to be on top of all the movements in the industry. Moving on to the governance and coordination of implementation. One thing that was sort of lacking in the insights that we got was the difficulty in coordinating the various stakeholders. We understand it's a strategy that needs input from multiple stakeholders, so you need data from NITA, you need NERA to also provide you with information, you need MOFPED to do some lobbying as well, and there's very many different stakeholders that are needed. The strategy did not really have a clear plan for that and a way to measure how to get everyone on the table, and also how to ensure that everyone is doing their part. So paying more attention on coming up with a better way to coordinate the various stakeholders and keep them all engaged with all the activities that they're meant to be doing. And then another positive thing, we'll just keep reiterating this, was in terms of getting all the stakeholders on the table. The CEOs Forum was quite vital for that because it brings both the regulator and the players in the market. And that was found to be productive in terms of the engagements that it facilitated. And also the recommendation there would be to continue with those and figure out ways to make them more effective so that each and every single player in the market, each PSP knows that their voice can be heard individually, both through the association and also just individually at such forums with the regulator. And then lastly would be the implementation focus. Since it was the first strategy for e-payments in Uganda, one thing that was quite strong in the findings was that it focused a lot on the supply side. So let's set up a switch. Let's make sure all the players are regulated, are registered, let's make sure there's a sandbox. But there was not much of a focus on the demand side. So trying to get the actual users of these technologies to basically putting in specific strategies that would encourage them to take up e-payments more. So our recommendation would be that future strategies should consider the demand side as well and not focus on the supply side. And it's key to note that, of course, being the first strategy, it was necessary to set up all the supply side infrastructure and have all the supply side considerations put in place, which is a good thing. So looking forward, now that we've set up access, if we're trying to deepen usage of these solutions, that's one way to do it, engaging the demand side. And then despite the lack of a national switch, that's one of the main thing that's holding up full interoperability, and also one thing that's been proposed as a way of bringing down the costs. So the fact that there is no national switch yet, I think, is one major constraint, and that's meant to be a focus in the future strategy. Of course, the movements that have been made are also recognized, and those, we need to basically build on those because the switch is actually vital to ensuring e-payments are, the e-payment sector grows and is fair and accessible to all. And then, of course, Tumi had touched on this, because e-payments is growing, because more people are using digital payments, it also opens up the doors to more cybersecurity threats. So there's need for continued efforts to educate the public on how to protect themselves, and also to set up the correct redress mechanisms for the supply side. So the players, if they are targeted, say at their level, they should have a way to get support on that. And I think one of the positive things is the anti-fraud consortium that's recently been constituted. And the work that's been done there, the stakeholders that have been brought to the table are literally the right people to be in the room. And that's basically something that should be built upon, that can be used as a tool to achieve this specific objective. I think in terms of the lessons and the recommendations, those are the key that come out. If you take a look at the report, we have a much longer list of about 15 different lessons and recommendations that come out of that. So I think that's a more detailed way to engage with the content. And then the other thing that we considered was forward-looking considerations. After what we've seen, what has happened, the lessons that have been learned, what needs to be the focus for the next strategy, because we're moving from the Pioneer strategy, which, like I'd mentioned, has focused on the supply side. What do we now need to focus on moving forward? Yeah, so the first thing would be deepening usage. We've established that access has grown. There's more people that have access to these solutions. There's more people that have access to the mobile phones, that have access to the internet, that power these solutions. Now what's necessary is to deepen usage so that people are not just putting money into mobile money and then picking it out, then transacting in cash. So deepening usage beyond just P2P, I think the director gave us some good statistics on what percentage, around 25% are P2B, so maybe bringing that 20% to be a lot higher would be good. And one way to do that is starting by sort of the low-hanging fruit. For example, government-to-person payments, those could all be digitized. There's movements that have been made on that, of course, with, say, PDM and the SAGE program. There's been banks that have been engaged to be able to digitally provide these funds to the final beneficiaries. So what we're saying is building on those initial examples to see what avenues, at what points does the government interact with the public, and how can those payments be digitized, both for the public paying government and also for government paying into the public. So that's one way to deepen usage, and also there's things like school fees payments, bill payments. Those have taken stride, but more efforts could be made to strengthen that space, and of course bring up merchant payments as well. And then in terms of ensuring affordability and cost reduction, that's very dependent on specific activities in the strategy. For example, ensuring that there's full interoperability, so with a national switch that would be possible to bring down those costs and also to make the space more accessible to all the innovators. The other key focus area would be completing and leveraging DPI. So we've already started registering for the digital national IDs, using the entire DPI process where we have digital identity systems, digital payment systems, and also a data exchange system, having those put in place. And I think NITA is a good contributor to such initiatives. I think one of the focus areas for the next strategy needs to be ensuring that we have a fully functional digital public infrastructure so that the e-payments sector can also feed on that. Right. And now in terms of fostering a fair and fully interoperable market, we've already touched on this. And I think the other thing to focus on here would be the regulations, specifically touching on anti-competition. That's something that needs to specifically be articulated in terms of who is in charge of it and what activities need to be done to ensure that the space is accessible to all the players and all the players have a fair chance to, I guess, build their market share and compete in the space. And then cybersecurity is a key issue that has come up quite a lot. So ensuring that there is consumer trust, both in terms of the customers that use the solutions and also the supply side needs to have redress mechanisms in case they're affected by cybersecurity threats. And then rural digitization is another way of deepening access, another point that I guess should be focused on, or a sector that should be focused on in the next strategy. Of course, that means leveraging the agent networks, working with SACCOs that already have access to people in the rural areas, and also just developing tailored payments products that actually fit their realities and the technologies that they have at their disposal. So, yeah, ensuring that rural digitization also grows is something that's essential to ensuring the e-payment sector as a whole has a larger demand side to work with. And then emerging technologies, of course, we're in a space that's changing quite often and quite regularly. So ensuring that we leverage emerging technologies like AI, merchant acquiring, and also an open finance or an open banking system would also help build the e-payments sector. So ensuring that these technologies are understood both at the regulator level and also at the market level itself, are essential to ensuring that we can find ways of leveraging them in future strategies and also in the future of the e-payment space. And then the very last one would be strengthening the human and institutional capacity, because none of these things can work if we don't have the necessary expertise and human resources. So both, again, at the regulator level and also for all the stakeholders that are necessary, say for cybersecurity, whichever entity is in charge of that, there should be the necessary human resources and expertise needed to push that agenda. So these are some of the focus areas that we've picked out as what should stand out, but we also want to hear from you to see what you think in terms of one, what haven't we covered, or what do you think about the evaluation, and also what should be prioritized as we finalize this evaluation report. What do we need to include that's maybe not been captured just as much as it should be? So yeah, thank you again for your time, and if you could just quickly scan the code, and you get access to our next session.
Thank you. Another round of applause for Genesis. A bigger hand clap. I believe we all had breakfast. Thank you. This has been a wonderful report. I believe some of the insights that some of the people in the room shared have been captured. By show of hands, how many of us read the report before coming in? By show of hands. Okay, that's about 30%. So, yes, I believe that you've been able to pick some of the insights that you shared and some of the recommendations that you'd like to see. So, would like to move into the next session before we invite Nita you to come in. I would like us all to scan the QR code. If the team can display the QR code, scan the QR code, and let's get some feedback from you in terms of the report that has just been shared. We know that even before implementing, we need to start with a strategy, which has been a very good start by the Bank of Uganda. We'd call it the Pioneer Strategy. The purpose is to really strengthen the efficiency of the payment systems, build resilience, improve on innovation so that we can get other people to access the financial services system. I believe most of the people in this room have smartphones. So please scan so that we can start the next session. Are we there? Are we there? So the first question is, what stood out to you in the presentation? I hope we've all been listening in. If you can just share what stood out for you in this presentation. We'll give you about 1 minute. And I'd request the team to just do a live display of what we are thinking. I hope we've all been listening, because payment system is a very pertinent area in the financial sector. This also includes the team that is online, all those who are watching us online. I hope you've been able to scan the QR code. You are also part of this exercise. I know you might not have been able to be here physically, but you're present online. So please, we are also looking forward to your feedback, and your participation is welcome. So can we have the team display what we have so far? So quickly, I'm just going to read out just a few key things that stood out for the team in the room and those online. What stood out to you in the evaluation? We have someone saying it was a good presentation. Thank you for that, Genesis. We have people talking about the need for interoperability. That is key. We have the lessons learned and that the strategy should come before the framework. That is very important. We start with the strategy even before going into the framework. We see the need to focus on the demand side for the second e-payment strategy. That is key. We also see the dominance of P2P transactions, which suggests the progress of cashless ecosystem. It has a long way, it still has a long way to go, and it's embedded in the population. Yes, fair competition regulations. Someone has talked about fair competition regulations. National payment switch, that's key. I've been in a number of forums where different players are asking about the national switch. So our regulator, Bank of Uganda, maybe you can talk more about it as we go into the Q&A. But in the last 3 months, I know that whichever session I've been attending, the issue on the national switch has come up. So that emphasizes the importance and the need. We also see the feedback on the great breakdown on the insights, the growth of the industry since the launch of the strategy. I too have been amazed at the growth. We have grown as a financial sector. The mere fact that we have all stakeholders in the room is a sign of growth. We are here with our regulator. We have fintechs, PSPs. We have industry associations in the room. That's a sign of growth. Someone said the breadth of data collection, the lessons learned, the findings on the uptake and usage of digital payments still has a lot to be done. Somebody also said more insights on how digitization is growing in the country, how best will it be improved, the growth of digital payment use. We saw that in the figures that had been shared. Someone said what stood out for them was the high pricing by mobile money operators. Do we have mobile money operators in the room? I got a regret from Airtel Commerce. I don't know if we have MTN Momo in the room. I think no, we don't have anyone represented, but they participated in the interviews. The importance of formulating the law before the strategy, the high pricing by mobile money operators, the very high communication channel pricing by the telecoms. Yes, so that is your feedback so far. Thank you very much. A round of applause to all of you. That means we've all been listening in. This is a very pertinent area in our industry. We'll go through one more question. I would like you to get back on your phones. There's another question for us to respond to, and maybe the team can display. The next question is, what are you doing to promote digital payment transformation in your organization? We had the introductions. We have CEOs in the room who are in charge of strategy in their various organizations. So I believe, looking at the growth that has been shared, I believe all the players in this room have had a part to play in this growth. So would like you to share, what are you doing to promote digital payment transformation in your organization? I'll just give a minute. A minute to share. As NITAYU prepares itself to come and share, we have a minute to just see what our organizations are doing.
in the area of digital payment transformation. Keep the ideas coming, keep them coming. Okay. While you're sharing, I'm going to read out some of the feedback that we are getting on what the different institutions are doing in their organization. We have one is saying engaging for leadership commitment and buy-in. That is very important. Without buy-in from the leadership, it's almost next to impossible to implement digital transformation. As we can see from the report that has been shared, our governor has shown an example by having the CEO forums. So we have CEOs that meet the governor every quarter. That's a very, very important step in promoting digital payment transformation. Our regulator has shown us an example, so I believe the rest of us should follow suit. Yes, another thing that people are doing to promote digital transformation is using digital products for our own operation. Another one is saying digitization of circles and massive digital literacy at grassroots countrywide. That's very important. It's one of the most difficult things to do, but it's happening. That's very good. Development of solutions that serve the last mile and bottom of the pyramid. Consumers focusing on affordability and usability, that's key. Others have earmarked digital transformation as a key strategic priority. That's important because the world is evolving. Engaging relevant stakeholders to address structural rigidities, that's key. Partnering and collaborating with PSPs. Then we see as a financial institution, that has gone, but strengthening eKYC, digital financial literacy is important. Awareness on digital fraud, that is very, very important. As we are getting the underserved to access financial services, we don't want them to start using the electronic channels and then they are hit by fraud. They will never come back to use those services. So that's very important, digital fraud awareness. Then introducing affordable products in the underserved sectors of the economy, that's important. So we kind of have a clear line of sight in line with the recommendations of the strategy on where we need to focus. I remember what stood out for me was the digitization of the rural communities. I can see already some organizations are already on a path to doing that. Complete digitization of all transactions in circles and tier 4, investing in digital infrastructure, that is key. At Flutterwave, we have built a payments infrastructure that enables individuals and businesses and global enterprises to easily move money where it's needed, driving digital payments adoption in Uganda. That's great. Thank you very much, Flutterwave. I see here UCC is currently conducting a nationwide consumer awareness on safety of digital payments platforms. Thank you very much, UCC. Teaching the staff more of the importance of digital payments and putting systems in place that require digitization. That is very important because it's staff who usually execute this. Then I'll read one last one, the one of onboarding of MDIs, the one at the last. onboarding of MDIs, to the shared agent banking platform, developing a shared and interoperable integrated financial services platform for use by non-bank FSPs, and enhancing fraud controls across our platforms. Then finally, supporting the legal and regulatory reforms in the gray areas. So thank you very much, everyone. A round of applause for each and every one of you for participating, and also for just progressing these initiatives in each of your organizations. We know that when we consolidate this, it all feeds into the national strategy that has just been read. So just before we move to the next session, I would like to recognize the presence of our policymaker, Ministry of Finance. Maybe you could stand up and wave to us, the Ministry of Finance. I think it's somewhere at the back. Yes. Thank you very much. You are welcome. We need the policymakers in order to be able to implement all these strategies. Thank you very much. So without much further ado, I'd like to welcome Augustine from NITAYU to come and just share with us a highlight, first of all, the work that NITAYU is doing in relation to e-payment strategy. They could also share with us the planned initiatives and priorities that may shape the digital payments landscape going forward. As we had in the report, there was a challenge mentioned about different government entities having different initiatives and different focus areas. So just trying to hear what NITAYU is sharing with us will be helpful in progressing the strategy forward, because they are a critical partner in that. First of all, we need the infrastructure to be set up even before we go into further implementation. So let's give a hand clap for Augustine from NITAYU to just come and share with us what they're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you, the moderator. Protocol, as it has already been laid out, is observed. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Augustine Sekyondwa. I'm a senior business analyst at NITA Uganda. We thank the Central Bank, along with FSDU, for giving us this opportunity to share with you what we are trying to do in this ecosystem of the e-payments. For those of you who are interfacing with NITA Uganda or hearing about NITA Uganda for the first time, NITA Uganda is the National Information Technology Authority of Uganda. Uganda is very important after NITA because there is another NITA in Ghana. So we always emphasize to refer to ourselves as NITA Uganda. But there was also, on a lighter note, there was a rebel outfit, I think, in Angola that was called UNITA. So for us, we are NITA Uganda. NITA Uganda is actually not a guest on this particular subject. We've been participating in the implementation of the strategy, the e-payment strategy, but also participated in the evaluation. So we are so much aware of the challenges that we have, but also the opportunities that are ahead of us regarding the e-payments, and in particular, the strategy that we have and the one that we intend to have. NITA's role, basically in this ecosystem, is more of an enabling role. not on several occasions, just on a few occasions that you will see us on specific implementations that are not specifically for, we are largely an enabling entity for this particular ecosystem. Okay. As you see, our vision is to transform lives through e-service delivery. Summarizing the mandate for NITA, of NITA, we are, our major focus is to promote e-government, but also e-commerce. When you look at these two that summarizes our entire mandate, you cannot do them without e-payments. You cannot imagine promoting e-government without e-payments, because on a number of occasions, government has collections, government has payments that they make, but for e-government, these practically should be digital. On the part of e-commerce, same thing. You cannot promote e-commerce, or you cannot imagine e-commerce without electronic payments. These two go hand in hand. So a topic, or any topic that talks about e-payments is really at the heart of NITA. Like I've just mentioned, ours is more of a support role, an enabling role to promote e-payments. Starting from the infrastructure, NITA is responsible for connecting government establishments, government ministries, departments and agencies, local governments, government hospitals, health centers, and so on. As we connect them, ultimately, we are promoting the usage of e-payments. Because at these various establishments, there are some non-tax revenues that are collected. So when we connect these, and then we facilitate them to be able to accept electronic payments, we are walking the journey with you. Public Wi-Fi, we are also establishing public Wi-Fi hotspots at various locations across the country, such that people find ease when they are making payments electronically. The UG Hub platform. This is from the infrastructure angle. The UG Hub platform. The UG Hub is a data and application integration platform. It is aimed at enabling access to the data that is seated in the various ministries and departments of government, such that that data is made reusable by whoever needs to do something with it. With this UG Hub, we've been able to simplify access to the national ID database that NIRA holds custodianship over. By simplifying this, we have unlocked what we are calling the electronic Know Your Customer. As of 30th June 2025, we had connected 90 entities in the financial sector, specifically for this purpose, electronic Know Your Customer. Our intention is not to stop at just making you access the NIRA database, because we know that eKYC stretches beyond verifying the individuals. You may want to verify entities, non-individuals. So we are also laying ground such that you're able to also do eKYB, electronic Know Your Business, such that you can, for instance, verify these entities with URSB. For purposes of tax compliance, you can also check with URA. All these initiatives underway. The UG Pass. UG Pass may be a new one because we introduced it a few months back. Initially, it was for government purely, but we are now opening it up for other players, including the private sector. UG Pass has two aspects. It has the component of digital identity to facilitate authentication of the people who are making payments. I have seen, especially in banks, that when you're going to make a payment, I don't know whether it's across all banks, but there is one that I know where you have to access a physical token. There's a device that they sell to you, and then you keep with it for purposes of generating OTPs. Yes, it is a good initiative because it tightens a bit of the authentication before you make the payment. It is another factor. However, the world seems to be moving away from those tokens. So if we're going to keep giving tokens, we know it has that inconvenience of having to carry it. You're not comfortable. Anytime it can get lost from you. Number two, this token it doesn't have any other additional security. That anybody can place it if at all they have the first factor and then make a payment on your behalf. Here we are introducing certificate-based authentication, or one that is based on public key infrastructure. If you get to onboard for this service, of course, you may dwell with those tokens. Enabling environment. On this front, we are basically looking at the laws and regulations. Quite a number of laws have been put in place, as I will show you in the next slide, but it is one of the areas that we are facilitating for digital payments. It would also be a dead dream for you to imagine that you're going to succeed with electronic payments without strong cyber laws to which the providers, but also the people making the payments, should comply or must comply with. Certification of financial technology service providers, but also the ones who are providing digital financial services. This was an initiative that NITA brought up to instill confidence among the people using digital payment channels and services. In the report, it has already been identified that one of the challenges that we still have with electronic payments is trust and confidence. Some people think that these platforms may be unavailable when they need them. I want to make a payment. I remember there was one incident when one of the providers had a hiccup. It was a technical one for about a day, but it was almost bringing the whole country to its knees. Why? People have monies on their wallet, but they cannot transact. So the certification of these service providers to ensure that the platforms that they are providing the service with, first of all, have guarantee availability of the service. Besides availability, they're secure enough, but also usability of these platforms, but most importantly, the resilience. So certification of those financial technology service providers and the digital financial service providers. Compliance assessments. Not only do we stop at certifying these providers, but we also do compliance assessments. It is typical, I don't know whether in Uganda, but also, it could be also in other jurisdictions, that when somebody comes for something, let's say they want to get certified because it is a condition for you to get a license under the National Payment Systems Law. Somebody could come, at that point they meet all the requirements, and then they backslide. What we do, we regularly, within 6 months, we keep checking on these providers and assess them for compliance against the laws and regulations, but also policies and standards. It is a quick one. What is happening? Okay, so we've been talking about infrastructure. Just this one is to indicate to you the key milestones that we've achieved in line with the various initiatives that we're undertaking. We have laid out the optic fiber cable with a span spreading over 4,387 kilometers. But this is as of 30th June 2025. There is another project that we're implementing under the Uganda Digital Acceleration Project. So this is going to stretch, or this is going to connect more districts. As of now, we have connected about 60 out of the 146, but we're going to connect more under this program. Then, as we're connecting districts, we are connecting public health centers, we are connecting hospitals, and so on. Public Wi-Fi, about 500. Wi-Fi hotspots across the country have been established. Internet has been made less costly for MD establishments, that they can now pay for it at $35 per Mbps. We have a fully operational national SAT. This is basically to manage incidents, but also provide advisory services and mitigation strategies in case there is a cyber incident. I've just mentioned about the UG Hub having connected 90 of the entities in the financial sector UG Pass. We have certified 35 financial technology service providers. These are the planned initiatives, ladies and gentlemen. We intend to extend connectivity to more districts under UDAP. We also intend to intensify awareness campaigns on cyber fraud. Those of you who have been on the airwaves, I think you've heard of the campaign called Bera Kugad. Bera Kugad is championed by NITA Uganda, of course with Personal Data Protection Office. It is intended to create awareness about cyber fraud to the persons who are at the bottom of the pyramid. Largely, that is the target audience. Simplify compliance assessments. We want to leverage AI. I think by end of this year, we are going to unveil a portal that is AI-enabled to facilitate assessments. I will give you an example that somebody is providing payment services, they have terms and conditions for using this service. So when we unveil this portal, as opposed to this person coming to NITA, they bring to us, or for us going to them, they show us how their terms and conditions are structured. They will now upload, and in real time, based on the parameters that are inbuilt within the portal, they will scan through the terms and conditions, and then they say, your terms and conditions are deficient here and there. In real time, you get a report, and then you can provide some adjustments. Capacity building for investigators. I know this has also been identified within the report, that the investigators, prosecutors, judges tend to take long to decide on some of the cases that are to do with e-payments, all electronic payments in general. So we have a component under UDAP that is intended to build capacity for these investigators, prosecutors, and judges. Integrating digital payments within the portals and MDA channels is also another thing that we're doing, and we intend to intensify it. That for every MDA that is providing online services within their portal, within their mobile app, and so on, we're going to integrate electronic payments such that whoever is accessing the service is able to proceed to make a payment seamlessly. We started with a few MDAs. You have seen it at ePassport, you have seen it for Visa, you have seen it for lands. We are continuing with other MDAs in that line. As I end this presentation, a few milestones have been registered as laid out. But we also have a few things that still challenge us. Like we noted in the report that the industry or the ecosystem of e-payments is appreciative for the initiative of eKYC. However, we noticed that there are some also kind of feedback that this eKYC needs to be strengthened a little. That the verification that is being done is actually based on Boolean responses. Does this person exist? Yes or no? Yes. But the financial service providers, the digital financial service providers in particular, would want to do much more beyond that. So there are discussions around this to build electronic consent means such that somebody who is trying to access data can seek consent from the data subject before that data can be moved or can be shared. Because it is the impediment that we have. NIRA advances it, URA raises it, and any other entity that holds personal data. So the discussions are ongoing to ensure we get means that are efficient for whoever needs to do or to get beyond the Boolean response to achieve it. So these initiatives around e-consent, which we are championing. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening.
Another round of applause for NITAYU. Thank you very much for the submission of the planned initiatives and all the things that NITAYU is doing to ensure that we strengthen the e-payments ecosystem. We've seen a number of initiatives from cyber resilience to e-consent plans and all that. Thank you very much. We are going into the next session, which is Q&A. I would like you to just organize your questions. We have the regulators here. We have policymakers here. We want you to ask if there are any questions that you have in relation to the report that has been shared, or anything in relation to e-payments. Please raise your hand. Any reflections, anything that you think could have been missed out? Do we have any questions? Yes, we have a hand here from Ronald.
Thank you very much. I don't know which hostess to thank, okay, both hostesses. But it's been a great report. I think as I put in my comments, the report has been well articulated. The issues have been well pointed out. I just seem to find quite absent one of the items. There seems to be no focus on local content in terms of service provision. Is there any deliberate effort to promote local content or local service providers in all the initiatives that are planned, whether from, say, NITA? I mean, what we keep seeing all the time is entities or government entities or policymakers going abroad to ship in services or service providers or for some of these initiatives. Why is there no deliberate effort to promote local content?
Thank you. That's a very good question from Ronald of Pegasus. Yes, that's a question for our regulators. The good thing, they are all here in the room, so they should prepare answers. There's a hand behind there. Yes.
Thank you, and just to add my voice, this is a great initiative, also to the fact that we are able to come together to discuss it. When I look at the vision, empowering Ugandans with a broad range of innovative e-payment options which are safe, efficient, accessible, and convenient, and inclusive. It's perhaps difficult to measure this without looking at affordability. And affordability not just for the channels, and very often we look at the channels, how, the transaction charges, but the access to affordable capital. I think that payment infrastructure, the e-payment strategy, must be very intentional about unlocking access to affordable financing for the ordinary person. Otherwise, the payment rails that we have built then become a channel through which financing, the limited resources are actually taken out of the communities. And then the communities end up being more vulnerable. I would suggest that one of the lessons that we ought to pick up from here is that we need to be intentional and have an integrated approach to create a strong investor community, which would include a strong stock market, a vibrant stock market. I am happy that there have been some initiatives, but I think they need to find their way in this strategy. But also tax regimes. Even when we have had some successes in the income tax amendments, giving waivers for capital gain tax for locally registered VCs and private equity, we need also to look at the others that may never actually register here. 30% is way high. Kenya, we are talking about 15%. Nigeria, we are talking about 10%. Rwanda, we are talking about 5%. There is no incentive for a private equity that is not here in Uganda to bring in capital into Uganda. And for that reason, people still borrow at 9% per month. That is 108. So if you count the number of mobile money accounts, and you are talking about someone who has borrowed at 108%, that is really not something that is leading to an empowered Ugandan. So there ought to be a clear initiative in our e-payment strategy that focuses at unlocking capital, affordable, high-risk capital for innovation in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent. I hope we've captured his question. He's talked about a number of things: affordable financing, unlocking investor capital, the tax regime, the borrowing at high interest rates. Yes, we'll have one more question, then ask the regulators to respond, then move into another set of questions. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please stay behind. Don't leave. I see some people leaving. We are going to have a group picture just right after this session as part of evidence that we attended and participated in this section. So please don't leave.
Thank you.
Yes.
I must say that this has been an insightful discussion. My name is Jackson. I serve at Flutterwave, Uganda, as a business development lead. So my question is, I looked into the report. I don't know if maybe it's something that I missed. But my question is, what are the key strategic initiatives or policy direction that are being advanced to promote regional interoperability, more specifically aligning Uganda's digital payment ecosystems with regional markets, such as the East Africa and Africa as a whole? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those questions. So I'd request Bank of Uganda to first respond to those. Then we move into the next set of questions. We have our director here, National Payments, so Alex. We also have Nitayu. Those who have questions for Nitayu, you can channel them here. He's right here at the front. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, colleagues, for the comments and questions. Promotion of local content. I hear you loud and clear, Ronald. What I'm not sure of is whether that is a matter that would directly be incorporated into this strategy. I do know that as a country, we do have a BUBU policy. Maybe my colleagues from Ministry of Finance might be better informed on this. But on our part as the central bank, I would like to say that when it comes to issues around infrastructure, payment infrastructure to be specific, the processes are usually open. Open international tendering is what the central bank does, meaning that it is open for both local and foreign participants. So we don't have a policy as a central bank where we would say this is ring fenced for the domestic suppliers. In terms of affordability, I think Vincent raises a very good point. I don't know they'll have CMA with us this morning, but I think that is something that can be picked up. I don't know whether the team from Genesis is still able to pick up on in terms of what we have seen for the past 4 years and how the current players in the space have leveraged affordable financing. From our side as a central bank, of course, without going so much into the details, we know that some of the institutions who have licensed have benefited from venture capital funds domestically and internationally. The question is, how would then this be turned into some specific initiatives that would promote access to those kind of funds? I think this would be something to consider, especially if we can have CMA directly involved. Just 2 weeks ago, CMA launched a regulatory sandbox for their licenses, and I believe these are some of the possible interventions that could stimulate access to capital markets. But it would require further insights from the Capital Markets Authority, and I hope Genesis can take note of that for further engagement. tax regimes, I think this is more of a policy discussion, and I will invite finance for comment. But I do know that as recent as 2 weeks ago, I think 3 weeks maybe, there was a policy workshop held to dissect the question for the financial sector. And many times it's easy to quickly say withdraw tax for mobile money. But I think we'll need dig deep into this conversation and see the whys and the hows and what could be done about it. And I will just scratch the surface just to stimulate thought, and maybe we shall have more comments on this. Arguments have been tabled, for example, that the withdrawal tax on mobile money is actually good. Arguments have been tabled from some circles, saying that it is actually a deterrent for cashing out. And the proponents argue that let's keep money in the digital ecosystem. Let's discourage the withdrawals. Let's keep it in the ecosystem. Of course, they have a point. Others have cited arbitrage with comparisons directly being done against the mobile money ecosystem and the traditional banking side where you don't pay a tax for the withdrawals. And maybe that is an area that should be focused on when it comes to the tax conversation. So there is, I think, quite a lot to be discussed on this, and I'm glad to note that the Ministry of Finance, I think, has already picked this up. Like I mentioned, there was a tax workshop held recently to steer these conversations at the financial sector holistically. For Flutterwave, Jackson, thank you for what you've raised. This is true. There are a number of regional initiatives, and I think from an evaluation point of view, because we're looking back onto the old strategy, these were not well articulated in the strategy that we are evaluating. But going forward, I'm certain that we're definitely going to pick these up because there is a lot that is going on at the regional front. We actually have a whole master plan for the development of regional payments infrastructure, both, or rather starting at the ESC and then taking it all the way up to the AU level. At the East African level, we have the East African Payment System, we have the COMESA digital retail payment system that is also being worked on. And at Africa level, we also have the PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. So yes, you are right. In the past strategy, we didn't actually have this well articulated. But going forward, it's definitely an area that has to be featured prominently.
Thank you. Thank you. A hand clap for our director. Thank you, Andrew, for those great submissions. I hope the audience has been responded to satisfactorily. I'm looking at...
Diana, I don't know whether my colleagues from finance want to say anything on the BUBU policies and tax matters. If they have, maybe it's the right opportunity.
Okay, yes. Over to you, colleague from Ministry of Finance.
September to late November. Yes, as director from Bank of Uganda has discussed, there are those views on withholding tax. But of course, on several occasions we have gone to Parliament to defend the positions that we get from consultations, and Parliament also guides that we still need to discourage people withdrawing money from the system to hold it in cash form. But we are open to these ideas, and we want to listen to you, and we want to respond positively. We want to support this sector to grow. That's the only commitment we can make. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ministry of Finance, for sharing those submissions. The beauty is they've said they are open to any other feedback or concerns that the industry has in relation to the issue of tax. I know that the issue of local content is a concern as well, as raised by Ronald, and it was responded to appropriately. I think maybe the question to ask ourselves is, because our director said, when bids are sent out, it's an open bidding that goes out and it's competitive. So maybe the question would be, why isn't it that the local farms are going through? It's something maybe to be unpacked in another forum, but I think what you've raised is a very important issue. Probably points to other areas as capacity building and all that, but I think that's a very good point that you've raised. I also know that there are some procurements where you must have a local person as part of the team. So I believe those are initiatives towards having local service providers or building local content in terms of strengthening payment systems in Uganda. So thank you. Let's move to another set of questions. I saw a hand up there. We can look at another 3.
Thanks very much. I'd like to raise maybe a gap in either the strategy, maybe not the evaluation, but the strategy or some of the discussion. I think Bank of Uganda should definitely be commended for the way that they have approached discussions with key players in the industry. But I do think there is a big gap with other policymakers. And I think maybe we're looking at this slightly the wrong way around. So I think digital payments there are definitely developments we need to do, but I think digital payments are an indication of market formalization. And I think that sitting here with all these players, I bet 100% of people here get all of their salary paid in to a cashless account, right? That is where the money in comes from. That is how the cashless adoption happens. We've just had a conversation with Ministry of Finance about the withdrawal tax. Withdrawal tax matters primarily because most people are putting cash into the cashless system. And so there needs to be a lot more focus on the formalization of our economy here, because that will then drive the digital payments rather than asking the banks, the mobile money players, to try and solve for money in, which inevitably has a high cost. So I think that is a big gap in the strategy that needs to be addressed with not Bank of Uganda, but other policymakers and other ministries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those submissions about the gaps. Do we have any other question? Any other comments? Yes, we have a question here from Jackie. Jackie of Wave.
Good morning. My name is Jackie Ochola from Wave, Uganda. My question is related to the last one. And the way I want to phrase it is, where does the national payment strategy actually sit in this country? And I ask this because, yes, I know the central bank as the regulator plays a central, a core function in terms of drawing up and implementing the strategy. But where the arm of the central bank cannot reach, suddenly becomes a big issue. To point out an example from the evaluation around fair competition and the rules governing that, okay? That seems to be somewhat out of the arm of reach of the central bank. And so if we are designing a strategy and yet a core part of it, that directly affects how it is going to succeed or not is outside what the central bank can function, can influence, then is it sitting in the right place? Should it be elevated to a different level so that the different aspects of it can actually then effectively be captured, implemented with those who are directly responsible for that part of it? And then a futuristic question is, now that we are in year 5, is the work on designing the next strategy for the next period already taking off? Are we not late? And can we hope that it's going to be a lot more ambitious than the current one that has brought us to where we are? Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, for those great questions. Question on where is this strategy sitting? Fair competition, is it in the right place? And where are we going in terms of designing the new? Yes, yes, we have another question from Joseph.
Related to the questions from the previous contributor, I think as we are looking at the next phase, we need to be mindful that payments or digital payments is a subset of a much bigger focus area, which is digital transformation of the economy. Because if you think about it, payments do not operate in a vacuum. Payments operate in markets because they facilitate economic transactions in markets. So until you have functional markets that are digitized, then we cannot be talking about digital payments. Digital payments only become relevant and of value where you already have a vibrant digital marketplace that makes it necessary for payments in that market to be done digitally. So meaning that even as we're thinking about the e-payment strategy, we need to ask ourselves, does Uganda have a digital transformation strategy that focuses on transforming our economy from what you call analog or whatever it is into a digital economy? Because if those two are not moving in tandem, then we're always going to have gaps and challenges in realizing the aspirations of the e-payment strategy. And I think that's what the previous person was asking, where does it sit? Because there are quite a number of things that need to be dotted before what we're doing here becomes relevant and of value. So that means that we need to be able to work together or somehow to make sure that we're all in sync, to make sure that what we're doing here is relevant. The other one is more in terms of how to structure the strategy. I think we need to be, in the future one, we need to think about positioning the strategy in terms of outcome-based rather than activity-based. What I mean here is that we should place more emphasis on what we want to see happening in the market than the different activities we're going to do. That way we're able to evaluate and ask ourselves whether what we are doing is actually yielding the fruits and the outcomes that we desire. It's nice to have in place a committee. It's nice to have in place a regulation or an infrastructure. But it's only important if that infrastructure has actually resulted into increased use of digital payments. And until we have increased use of digital payments, then that means that the activities we are doing are either not sufficient or they are not the right activities. So meaning that in terms of evaluating ourselves, we should be evaluating ourselves outcomes of our activities rather than the achievement or completeness of our activities.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joseph, for those great questions. He has loaded questions, so we should be able to respond to them. He has said something important, that digital payments is a subset of the overall digital transformation. So where does this sit? Where is the collaboration discussion? How are the markets working? Remember in the strategy they said we need to do more rural digitization. But do they have the money, are the activities there for them to be able to transact digitally? What is being done at policy level, regulatory level to ensure that the financial markets are working, the whole digital transformation is working? Outcome-based is another keyword that I picked from his question. So yes, I think those are 2 questions. 3, we're done. Okay, so let's have the responses from the regulator. Andrew again is on the spot.
I think the regulator doesn't have all the answers. And I think some of the contributions that have come through are actually more of comments, which I think are things for us to reflect on. But I'll try to share my take on what has come through. I will start with, I think the two actually speaking to the same thing. Jackie's comment and my brother here, Joseph. If you go back to what Genesis has done, one of the things they actually picked up was around organization and implementation of the strategy. I think it didn't come out explicitly, but from the conversations, I know that a question arose as to whether this strategy should sit at the central bank. And I think it is the same point being raised here. So from the first strategy, someone had to take the initiative. In 2021, we didn't have a national digital transformation roadmap, but we had the National Payment Systems Law implemented by the central bank. So clearly something had to be done and someone had to take the initiative. So it happened that the central bank took that lead, rallied a few stakeholders together, and this is how far we have come. 3 years down the road, that was I think last year or 2023, the Ministry of ICT launched the National Digital Transformation Roadmap, which is, I think the country's definition of what a digital Uganda should look like. So my take would be that this strategy should ideally now be fitting within that national vision for a digital economy. I think that's how I would see the logic flowing. Of course, on top of the National Digital Transformation Roadmap, we have the other policy documents, the Vision 2040, the NDPs, and all those things. So I think we must have alignment, and I would agree with Joseph in that regard. Where should the Secretariat be? Who should take lead? I think that's open for discussion. Let's hear the views of the members. Should it move to the Ministry of Finance? Does it get a separate Secretariat? Should it go to the Ministry of ICT? I think those are conversations that we need to have and look at, all the contextual factors, look at who is best placed to own it, who is best placed to champion it and move it forward, given that it is an e-payment strategy. I think that's important. But I do agree with the comments. It must be aligned. There has to be clear definition of what it is we want to achieve in light of the broader national digital goals. And I think where appropriate, let's make it outcome-based. I think I entirely agree, but let's hear the thoughts of the rest of the team. Will the next strategy be more ambitious? That's from Jackie. I hope it will be. That's why we're here. That's why we're looking back to say, how far have we come? How well have we done? And then these answers are going to help us in shaping the way forward. I hope it will be more ambitious than the current one. That's my hope. We haven't started that process yet, but I believe it is going to come soon after this. I don't know whether my colleagues, my partners at FSD want to say something on the next steps, but my hope is that the next strategy will be more ambitious. We're going to have similar conversations and agree on what it is we want to do, how we want to do it, and by when we want to have it done.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you very much, Andrew. Just to add on what Andrew said, and I think I'm happy that we are beginning to look forward now, while we are looking backwards. The discussions seem to be saying this is where we want to go now. Regarding the measurement being more outcome than activity, I think one of the things that was highlighted that we missed out to have a very clear theory of change. Indeed, we did not have any in the last strategy or the current strategy that we are evaluating. And I seem to agree with Joseph that in the next one, we should have a very clear theory of change that will then help us measure the outcomes of the initiatives that we are going to implement. Jackie's question about what we're looking forward to. This strategy expires about June 2026. It's our expectation and hope that we'll immediately commence on development of the new one based on the lessons learned and then develop a new strategy. And I think when Andrew was providing his remarks, he clearly said that we'll be coming back to you again to give us the direction of where we need to go. We expect that we'll have a new strategy perhaps from July 2026 for the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Nitayo as well.
Thank you so much. Maybe to arrest the fears, whether we have a strategy, a digital transformation strategy or not, whether this strategy already provides for electronic payments, because you cannot pull out electronic payments from that bigger picture. Yes, we do have a digital transformation strategy of 2022, but also we have a roadmap for digital transformation of 2023. In each of these documents, the electronic payments have been prioritized. We know from the ICT angle that the building blocks for digital transformation are largely 5. One is digital identity. That's why we are looking at the UG Pass. The second one is data sharing. We talked about the UG Hub and any such initiatives around it. The third is cybersecurity. The fourth is hosting of systems and data. The last one is electronic payments. If you miss out on any of these blocks, I use the word daydreaming, you would be daydreaming to have digital transformation. So electronic payments have been prioritized in these documents, and that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitayo. A hand clap for them. The building blocks are important. Okay, so let's move to the next session. Do we have any other comments, reflections? I think some other insights that we need are in the last set of Mentimeter questions that we want to project. So I'd like to get you on your phones just one more time as we move closer to the end of this session. More about forward-looking, similar to the question that Jackie and Joseph alluded to, of where do we need to go. So just scan the QR code one more time as we move to the end of this session. If you have any comments, any ideas, please don't hesitate to bring them forward. We are all here, we are moving together. These are not only questions for the regulator, but even we, the players in the industry, can provide some really good suggestions on how best we can have a more ambitious e-payment strategy and more clear outcome-based initiatives. Just one more time, this is a digital engagement, so we want to engage you more on the phones. This is the future. Yes, I see a hand from Butimelo, Genesis.
No worries, thank you. Is it on? What I wanted to say, Diana, pardon? Okay. What I wanted to say, Diana, while everybody's on Mentimeter, is just a comment around where the strategy should sit. One of our mandates was to do benchmarking and best practice. So we've looked at Ethiopia, we've looked at Rwanda, we've looked... Is that better? Oh, there we go. I can even hear myself. I just wanted to comment on the question, I think it was from Jackie, around where should the strategy sit. So one of our mandates was to benchmark and look at best practice on the continent. And we've worked with Ethiopia, Rwanda, Nigeria, and it largely sits in the central bank. But it sits, I would say, as a spider system, to say that the central bank becomes a spine, yet there are areas that pull in. So in this case, it would be telecoms, it would be UCC that contribute to how that strategy is run, how it's monitored. So it's not necessarily an issue of is it the right place, but rather how is it coordinated, how is it collaborated, and who are the stakeholders who comment, and that's been our findings from the benchmarking exercises.
Thank you. Thank you, Butimelo, for that submission. It brings the collaboration discussion into the room. Otherwise, based on benchmarking, really, it's seated in the right place. Yes. The question is adoption versus usage. Where should we focus the next strategy? I see most of the answers are saying usage. Adoption versus usage, where should we focus? I think in the past 5 years we've been focusing more on adoption. I believe so. I think it's really only right for us to now begin focusing on usage or protecting what we have already gained, for lack of a better word. Yes, some other comments are, I think we should introduce cheaper payment options like QR code, usage because it will grow the demand side, formalization of sectors to enable source of money, learnings to be cashless, competitive sector to reduce costs. Both are important initiatives, should be aimed at driving both. So there are some who feel we should continue focusing on both adoption and usage. The majority in the room think we should focus on usage. There are comments around introducing more cheaper payment options. Thank you. Thank you for those submissions. I think we can now move to the next question. I hope that team online is also participating. This is a digital engagement session. System versus user experience, or both? Where should we focus? The next strategy. Even over and above user experience, if you have any other ideas on where we should focus the next strategy, please feel free to share. Over and above system and user experience. System and user experience alludes to what Sarah shared in her opening remarks. Trust. If the system is down, you will not trust it and you won't utilize it. If the system has been hacked, you won't trust it. So those are important aspects. Both. I know we are very quick to innovate, quick to come up with new ideas, but how robust is the system? In terms of uptime, when I need to use the service, do I find it up? That's very critical. It also points to how the building blocks are being set up. Yes, scroll down. Most people are saying both. So the people here in the room are part of the implementers of the strategy. Even as we digitize in our different areas, we need to make sure that the systems are robust enough and the user experience. How easy is it to onboard? We want to onboard the people in the rural areas. How easy is it for them to onboard onto these digital platforms? It speaks to the user experience. Someone says the next strategy should focus on system efficiency, user experience, but a stronger tilt towards user experience. That's key. It goes on to say Uganda's core payment infrastructure is functional. Yes, another says both underlying systems need to be interoperable. Dependable user experience is a quickly evolving environment. Someone says you can, I think they meant to say you cannot separate the two. Someone else feels we should focus on system security. That's very important. Okay. Most are saying both. Security stands out. Interoperability, efficiency, all that is very important. Let's move to the next question. Thank you all for your submissions. The final question is, what other external stakeholders need to be brought on board to effectively promote e-payments in Uganda? I believe Jackie of WAVE can give us some answers. She raised it, which was a very good one. Who is missing? Which stakeholder is missing? Which government entity is missing? Which private player is missing? Yeah, we had the introductions in the room. Is there anyone missing? Security, maybe unpack security. Do you mean national security? Do you mean cyber security? Do you mean IT security? Traders associations, yes, that's very important. Lawmakers and judges, yes. Informal sector players. That's important. We have someone from UMRA, MRD, representing the informal sector in the room. We have Patricia, I know she's representing the informal players. Yes, we have Capital Markets, Consumer Protection Association, Traders Association, NIRA, URA, Capital Markets Authority, regional players also, science, technology, and innovation, that's important, Ministry of Trade. We know that the competition regulation sits with Ministry of Trade, so that is also an important player. Yes, someone says BOU should be the one-stop shop with industry representation. Yes, so all this feedback that you're sharing is going to be factored in as we prepare the next strategy. Permanent secretaries, engage SME associations and end users. UMA, I believe that's Uganda Manufacturers Association, security entities, marketing boards. Ministry of Finance, okay, I know Ministry of Finance is in the room and they were part of the stakeholders, but especially the revision of the tax regime on smartphones. That's very important. If we want the underserved to access some of these devices, we need to really revise the tax regime. So I believe those have been our submissions, and that comes to the end of this section of the program. I just want to say thank you very much. Can each one of us give ourselves a hand clap? Thank you very much for your engagement. Thank you to Bank of Uganda, to Genesis, to all the commercial banks, PSPs, industry associations, the different policy makers in the room. Thank you very much. And as we come to the end of this session, I would like to invite a representative from FSDU to come and share with us closing remarks. Let's give Jackie a hand clap as she comes to share. A stronger hand clap.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you staying until the end of this event. I'm told there's another event at Ministry of Finance, so some of us had to leave to attend to that. I think it started at 11. But for those who are still in the room, we are truly honored that you stayed until the end. So I'll stand on the protocol that has been observed before, but good morning, distinguished participants, colleagues, and partners. On behalf of FSDU and on behalf of Bank of Uganda, if you can allow me, I extend my sincere appreciation to all of you for taking the time to join us today for this very important event. Your contributions have greatly enriched this process, and we've had a very productive and forward-looking discussion on the progress and future of Uganda's e-payments ecosystem. Over the last few hours, we have reflected on the achievements of the National E-Payment Strategy. We have examined the lessons that are emerging from its implementation, and we have debated on actions that need to consolidate our gains as we prepare for the next phase. So the discussions today just reaffirm our journey towards a safe, efficient, and inclusive digital payments ecosystem built on collaboration, innovation, and continuous learning. The evaluation findings have shown significant progress that has been made since its launch, including access to digital payment services, mobile money, agency banking, fintech innovations, and an enabling regulatory environment. These achievements are not accidental. They are a result of deliberate collaboration between regulators, financial service providers, development partners, and different consumer groups. Please allow me to thank all the institutions that are represented here today, from the Bank of Uganda, the Ministry of Finance, NITA-U, the commercial banks, fintech associations, and development partners. In particular, we want to thank the Gates Foundation, UNCDF, and other development partners for their continued support in building the foundations of an inclusive digital economy. The evaluation has also reminded us that progress has not been without challenges. We have talked about issues on interoperability gaps, uneven adoption among smaller institutions, data protection and cybersecurity concerns, and the high cost of digital transactions. We also have seen that digital ecosystems expand, that as digital ecosystems expand, so does the complexity of managing emerging risks, from competition and consumer protection to cross-border interoperability. These are not merely regulatory challenges, but system-level questions that call for stronger coordination, data-driven supervision, and continuous capacity building. As we take stock, it is encouraging that the Bank of Uganda has already begun several complementary initiatives, including the National Payment System Switch, Open Finance Frameworks, SupTech tools, and digital ID linkages. All of these will form critical pillars in the next strategy cycle. So some of you have been asking, what next? And what is our roadmap from today? So our task now is to use the insights from this room and those that were gathered before today to inform the design of the next strategy. The next phase should aim not only to consolidate existing achievements, but also to position Uganda as a leader in responsible digital transformation within the region. And some of the themes, I think, have already been shared that have emerged from today's deliberations. They include interoperability and inclusion, innovation with safety, data and analytics, and collaboration. These priorities align strongly with FSDU and Bank of Uganda's respective strategic plans and with Uganda's broader digital transformation roadmap. As we close, I wish to extend heartfelt appreciation to the technical team that led this process. And this is the Genesis team. In the room we have Boitumelo, Daniel, and Amanda. Can we just give them a round of applause? I also want to thank the Uganda Project Steering Team. That is the team from Bank of Uganda and the FSDU team. And from Bank of Uganda, I want us to thank Mr. Alex Ochan, Tony Malisa, Peter Kagumya, and all the other teams that have been working behind the scenes to ensure that we get to this stage. From the FSDU team, I want to thank Diana Akulu Wanyama, Liliana Court, Comfort Kesande, Martin Agaya, Rosette in absentia, and all the other supporting team members. We did receive comments from the entire FSDU team into this work. I want to also thank the senior management teams from Bank of Uganda. Some are present, but most especially, I just want to thank, some are absent, but I want to thank Mr. Andrew Kawere for being part of this process, but also for officiating on this event. I also want to thank the senior management of FSD Uganda, led by Ms. Sarah Barabazaire, the Director of Programs, Ms. Patience Chikoni, and the Director of Research, Mr. Joseph Lutwama, for their support and their input into this work. To our partners, some are in the room, UNCDF, Gates Foundation, and others that have supported the overall digital financial ecosystem Thank you for your steadfast partnership and belief in our country's vision for an inclusive and resilient economy. Finally, to all participants and everyone who participated, who shared their insights, we would not have been here if it wasn't for you. And like they've said earlier, the work does not end here. Today's validation is a milestone, but it's not an end point. So let's continue to collaborate, to innovate, to hold ourselves accountable for making digital payments more efficient, secure, and accessible for every Ugandan. Once again, thank you all for your active participation, thoughtful discussions, and your commitment to this shared agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie from FSDU, for that wonderful closing remarks. Another hand clap for her. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's validation program. This is one of the very few occasions that has ended well within time. We were scheduled to end at 11:30. And it's 11:24, so thank you very much to the teams for doing this within time. The last and final agenda on the program is a group picture. So I'd like us to just organize ourselves to come in front. I think I'll start with the speakers, all those who spoke this morning, the regulators, probably the ones on this table. You first come and take a picture, and then we have the rest of the team members also join in a group picture. Some need accountability. Others need it to go in the book of history that we were present in this national initiative that has shaped the future of Uganda. So I'd like to hand over to Lillian, the comms people, to just help us organize us. How do we do this? Do we start?